Good evening. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Planning Board in the City of Birmingham, Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. Could we please call the roll? Please.
It might be actually me. I'm forgetting if Laura's on vacation, so I'll just do it. Scott Klein.
I'm present.
Brian Williams.
Present.
Daniel Scher.
Here.
Bert Kosick.
Here.
Duncan Curry.
Here.
Robin Boyle.
Here.
Janelle Wilson-Boyce. Absent. Stuart Jeffries. Absent. Nassim Ramin. Currently not here. Bert Kosick.
Yes, sir.
Did I ask you? Okay.
All right, we are quorum. Mr. Curry is a voting member right now, and if Ms. Ramin comes in, she will also be a voting member, I believe, to make us full board. Let's move forward to a review and approval of the minutes from September 10th, which seems like ages ago, but any comments or corrections?
Do you have
Move the approval of the minutes of September 10, 2025 as presented.
support?
Motion, Mr. Scher, support by Mr. Williams. Any conversation at the board level?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous. Wonderful. Welcome tonight. For those of you watching at home and those of you here, we've got a bit of a hybrid meeting, which means we have site plans as well as some internal matters to discuss, but we're going to dive right in. The general public, there will be an opportunity for you to comment during each process. At that particular time, I will call for your public comment. You can either come forward here or use the raise your hand function in Zoom, and I will let you know when that occurs. Mr. Dupuy, any changes to the agenda as published?
Besides the person taking roll call votes? No.
No? Fantastic. All right, well, let's move right into it. We have a special land use permit and a site plan and design review, a final site plan and design review, pardon me, for 36977 Woodward. These are two separate approvals. However, they're so linked that we talk about them at once, but there will be two different motions if we decide to move forward.
Awesome.
Ms. Aldred, welcome.
Thank you. All right, so we were last together for a preliminary site plan review on September 10th. The applicant has submitted an application for a special land use permit and a final site plan and design review for the construction of a 3-story office building in the TZ3 zoning district located at 36977 Woodward Avenue on the corner of Horton and Woodward. As we go through the presentation tonight, we'll be discussing some small changes that have been made that were in recommendation from the preliminary site plan, and also some other small modifications that the team over at Quaker Flat has made since we last gathered. So to start right off the bat with our setback and height requirements, nothing has changed with the land use and zonings from our preliminary site plan. For setback and height requirements, one of the major conversation pieces that was discussed in preliminary site plan was discussing the ordinance language that requires 75% of the street building, of the street length to be occupied with a building structure. And currently they have only 61.2%. So it is still the recommendation of staff that the applicant must modify the site plan to have 75% of the street frontage or obtain a variance of 21.675 feet from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Similarly, the maximum building height required in this area is 42 feet or 4 stories. Currently, the bulk of the building is 38 feet, but the pinnacle of the building, which is a glass structure, which I'll pull up for you, goes up to 45 feet. We initially discussed in preliminary having this overall building height be reduced. In conversations with the applicant, they've chosen to, at this moment in time, they'd like to pursue a variance of 3 feet from the Board of Zoning Appeals for the peak of this structure. And we recommend that they reduce the overall height or proceed with that 3-foot variance. One of the big changes as well from preliminary site plan was the revision to indicate one main entry off of Woodward. Previously, there was only one entry off of the south end. As you can see here, it was off of this southern elevation. They have now added a main entrance off of Woodward here into the reception area. So that requirement has been attempted to be satisfied. So those are the three main things in the setbacks and height requirements. Going on a little bit more in more detail with some of the design review elements, we'll talk about dumpster screening first. There's one dumpster on this site. The dumpster appears to be well screened according to their drawings. I'll show you the last page, which shows a good location here. You can see it right here in this back corner. So along the southern elevation, along the rear of the property. The facade of the structure screening is the same brick building material as the facade of the actual building, and is capped with wooden doors. So it appears that the dumpster will be sufficiently screened. There's no changes significantly to the parking lot. The parking lot is continued to be screened by a brick wall, the 3-foot brick wall on either side. I'm going to pull it up for you here. One more. It's a little slow. You can see it on this one. So 3-foot masonry wall along the Quarton and Woodward edge, and it appears to be sufficient. No changes in the number of parking spaces as well. In terms of mechanical screening, the applicant is proposing to screen the rooftop units with an aluminum wall panel system that does not currently at this time appear to exceed the maximum height of 38, or the maximum building height, and it sits at around 38 feet. One of the things that Planning Board should probably like to discuss is the plan for the electrical transformer that is on the northern end elevation of the property here. They're proposing to have the 3-foot screen wall and then have evergreen landscaping on the other 3 sides. So the Planning Board should discuss whether that's sufficient for the mechanical unit. In terms of landscaping itself, there is not any significant changes in the landscape plan from preliminary site plan. It was discussed in the last meeting, talking about the breaking up the expanse, and it was the decision of the Planning Board in that meeting that the placement of the landscaping within the parking lot satisfied the intent of the section of the ordinance that talked about breaking up the landscaping, but obviously you may want to revisit this item upon final site plan review. So if you feel like that might have changed, you might want to have one more discussion about it, but nothing has really changed significantly in what they're proposing. Street trees have been modified to include 4 along the Woodward right-of-way as we recommended in compliance with the ordinance. The last streetscape standard that is kind of weird is adding 2 bike racks, very specific. They've added 1 bike rack to the northern end of the elevation internally to the parking lot here, but we just need them to add 1 more in order to be in compliance. Like I said, again, no significant changes to the parking, still 19 spots, no overall footprint change. No overall change to vehicular circulation or pedestrian circulation. The only addition is the indication that the sidewalk on Woodward is 7 feet instead of 6 in order to comply with our ordinance. That requires Woodward sidewalks to be 7 feet. Finally, the lighting review, as we did not discuss this at preliminary site plan, they're proposing 2 16-foot pole-mounted luminaries on site. They're using 2 different light fixtures that appear to be full cutoff, as well as 6 LED wall-packed fixtures along the building facade for security and visibility purposes. There's also 7 architectural wall sconces providing dual-sided illumination. So I can pull these up for you. And these do not appear to be cut off. They're these light fixtures down here in the corner. So they are dual-sided. They go to the left and to the right. According to our ordinance, all luminaries are required to be full cutoff or be granted a waiver in a position that they do not unreasonably invade the adjacent properties or impact the overall light. Based on the overview of the light fixtures, we recommend that the planning board grant the waiver for the non-cutoff light fixtures for this specific fixture. For the overall photometric plan, looking at the impact of the lights, the foot candles do not appear to exceed our maximum requirement, so they do not exceed the 20:1 maximum to minimum ratio, so they appear to be in compliance. Finally, for the design review final portion, we're talking about facade materials. I'll show you the examples of the facade materials for you. You can see the color scheme. All right. So nothing has significantly changed in the exterior of the building in terms of materials from preliminary site plan review. The exterior will be a mix of brick, metal cladding, metal panels, aluminum storefront glazing, and steel canopies. And it will also include future wall-mounted signage and a glass conservatory system. It's important to note that there's no signage being proposed or approved at this time. The colors appear to be a mix of dark gray brick, and light brick. And there's a use of board and batten aluminum wall panels in a zinc finish color as well. All materials appear to be high quality and enhance the exterior. The big question that came up in preliminary site plan review was breaking up the expanse of the blank walls along the northern and southern, or the northern and western elevations. The applicant has attempted to rectify that with adding 6 windows in here to break up the expanse on the western elevation. And then on the northern elevation, they added in these extra windows here. All these sets of windows were not included in preliminary site plan, so those are new additions. In terms of glazing, the first floor glazing values all meet the maximum and minimum requirements and appears to be in compliance there. Overall, not much has changed dramatically, but the applicant has done a great job working with us to improve any requirements that we've pointed out. In general, we think this project is in a pretty good place, considering all of the comments that the planning board provided last time. Toss it back to you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Mr. Sherry.
So would you remind me, why do we need a special land use permit for this project?
Great question. One of the weird TZ3 rules that once the office building or the building exceeds 4,000 square feet in TZ3, it triggers a special land use.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Mr. Blunt?
I remember we had a conversation about the definition of the edge between the parking at the rear and the building and the entranceway. How was that resolved?
Are we talking about pedestrian access specifically, or the vehicular motion with the curb cut?
How can I define the word?
You're referring to the kind of the interplay between the parking lot and the alley, correct?
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that would be a great question for the applicant when they come up.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you, Summer. The applicant is here. If they'd like to come forward and introduce themselves again and walk us briefly through the changes made.
Good evening and thank you for your time. Again, Jeff Klatt with Krieger Klatt Architects, 400 East Lincoln in Royal Oak. Also here with our project team again, we have Dean Thurman and Brandon Moore of InvestWise, and then we have Mike Fallant of Newmark as well. Again, thank you for your time last month. We appreciate all the feedback and the guidance. That was very helpful. We worked hard with Nick and Summer behind the scenes, trying to address all the comments and trying to work and make sure we could get those all accommodated. There's a couple that we really don't think we can. One being the 75-foot street frontage and the other being the height. We can discuss those in more detail. I'll grab the clicker. Is this one okay?
I think you might have. Is that fine, Nick? Yeah, that should be fine.
Again, we have a presentation, but Summer did an amazing job explaining the project, and I hate to be too redundant, so we can just walk through some of the modifications we made.
You should click it on, too, on the left side.
I should know this by now. There it is. Okay, there we go. So again, from a site modification standpoint, I broke it out into site and building. So again, we have the new walkway from the Woodward sidewalk to the Woodward facades. We have a new door, new main entry door there. Mr. Ball, you mentioned the separation between the alley and the parking lot. So we're proposing a 6-inch curb. Curb and gutter there to delineate that definition between the two. We worked with Stonefield, our civil engineer. We discussed the wall, which I think last month we spoke about that. Those get damaged, those get beat up, those get hit. We looked at bollards, fixed bollards, and maybe even the flexible type. The challenge is, because the site is so tight, and we have a 20-foot space, 20-foot drive, 20-foot space, there's not a lot of maneuverability, and those bollards, we think, could, prohibit, not allow the car to fully pull into that space, so leaving the back end of a pickup truck hanging out. So I think they'll get damaged anyway. So the idea is here, I think it's a good deterrent to have the 6-inch curb. So that's really what it is, alleyway, 6-inch curb, our parking area. And then the adjusted landscape design, so I believe we meet all the criteria there. I think we added one more street tree. We changed the street tree type to ginkgo bilobas, and then we added another one along the Woodward frontage too, and we can show that in our landscape plan. And then the 75-foot frontage, I think we discussed that last time. We'd love to do that. I know Dean would love to maximize the building along Woodward, but we need a drive. The driveway from Quarton is just too challenging. It's no left turn in. It'd be near impossible to have staff or guests head west, loop into the residential neighborhoods, turn right to head into the space. So it's not really a good way to enter the site. So we need that driveway. So that's really what's prohibiting us from doing that. And we're still ironing that out with MDOT, the exact placement and size of that drive. Again, building modifications, we added the main entry. Facade elements, as Summer mentioned, we did our best to break up the facade in those 20 to 30-foot lengths. It's challenging on the west end because we have stairwells, elevators, and restrooms. So what was shown in that one rendering, we can jump to that too, is we're proposing like almost transom type windows in the restroom. So they're high. You can't see in, but it lets daylight in and it helps us achieve that. And then we broke up some of the brick with the metal siding. And then the 45-foot height, I do have a section I can jump to, a building section or cake slice, if you want to call it that helps to indicate why we think the 45 feet is necessary for the building. So again, we don't need to touch on all this. This is all from the previous presentation. Again, this just suggests that our main entries, you can see the red star, that's along Woodward there. The curb along the west side, along the alley. There was some conversation about why is our ADA space in the middle, and we did look at moving that closer to the south end. But again, per discussion with the civil engineer, the way they designed it is there's almost a ridge line that runs across the middle where the ADA space is. So half our water sheds north, half our water sheds south. So by putting it in the middle, they felt we would have the best sidewalk approach, consistent ADA sidewalk approach to all doors along that facade. So that's why we kept it where it is, if that makes sense. That's how it was described to me. So that's why we kept it where it is. Again, you can see the 4 trees on Woodward. I highlighted the ones that we really changed. You can see the star, the red star along Woodward, our entry point, and the 4 trees, and the 3. We changed the tree type, and I think there was more screenage added along the transformer from last time. We didn't have anything on the back end of that. Plans, the only change was that yellow star on floor number 1. Exterior, same thought process, same approach to the building, trying to really define and respect that corner, trying to provide a real high-end, timeless building, something that'll look good today, and we hope in 100 years from now. Nothing trendy. Yeah, same look and feel to the building. No major changes to that. Except for the door along Woodward. I'm just dragging you through this because I have a section at the back end. There's the west side of the building too. You can see in the previous iteration that brick ran full 2 stories all the way across that facade. So what we did is we stepped it in to create a bit of relief, and then we have those 6 higher windows, transom-style windows in the restrooms, the men's and women's restrooms, to let daylight in, and it helps to break it up. And that mechanical screen that Summer mentioned is on the right. I think there's right here, sorry. This is really all the mechanical units are housed. So for the sake of consistency and trying to keep an even line, we just pulled this up to really shield all the mechanical units, so you won't see those at all. And so what we're trying to do here, this is that building section or the slice through the building at the conservatory. So this would be if you're standing in the building, you're standing in the parking lot looking east towards Woodward. So here you would see this is the ground level. This would be the second level right here. This is the rooftop, and then of course this shape is our conservatory. So these numbers are a little small here, but what this is really showing is we're aiming for a 10-foot ceiling at the first and second floor. And that's pretty common for a modern office building. we design office buildings for even the state of Michigan, some of these facilities that aren't of, this high-end nature, that we still have 10 or 11-foot ceiling, even 12-foot ceilings in some case. So we're still trying to at least strive for a 10-foot ceiling. And then, of course, there's ceiling tiles like here, there's ductwork, there's structural depth we have to work with, bar joists or steel shapes, decking, concrete floor slabs, you name it. So that floor system gets pretty thick. And it's about 4.5 feet, give or take, but that could even get thicker. We haven't had a structural engineer design this yet, but we're using past precedents and other projects to make assumptions. And then again, at this third level, it gets a little bit more trickier because we have the rooftop level. So on the right here is a little diagram of what that could look like. So there's often a walkable paver tile surface. Then there's pedestal systems that these pavers sit on to allow water to drain through to the membrane. So it gets pretty thick to do that. So what I'm getting at is these thicknesses required really limit what we can do. So again, we're proposing the same thing. We have an 8-foot door into our conservatory and then about the same 10-foot plate height. So what that does is it puts our eave line at about 40 feet, the midpoint at around 42 feet, give or take, and then that peak at 45. So again, that's the very peak of that structure, that glass transparent structure. If I jump back to a rendering, which is, from this aerial view, is maybe 9 to 10% of the overall. All other roof elements are below the required height. So it's just we feel a very minor piece of the building, but it adds some impact. And I hate to set the building up for, I want to say failure, but for challenges by reducing it, floor to floor challenges, structural challenges to make that work. So we're just trying to make sure we have a little bit of a buffer in there to make sure it works. So that's why we're requesting the 45 feet. So I don't know if you can support that. There was conversation last time. We know it would require variance regardless, but we just wanted to bring up, we looked at pulling it down. We wanted to comply. We know it's not easy to bring it from the zoning board, and but that's our rationale behind that. So that's really it from a presentation standpoint. I can answer any questions you have. So thank you.
Let's start over here. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Boyle, Mr. Curry, anything?
Explain the screening. It looks heavier, bigger than it was in the first one. Am I right that you have extended the screening along the roof, the brown colored screen?
No, it's the same. It's the same height. It's really like a gray screen. It hasn't changed. It's been the same as the last time. There's been no difference. The overall footprint hasn't changed. Nothing like that has changed. So it's still the same.
Fine.
And it's fairly low in stature because we don't have a lot of height to work with there. So that third floor is not going to be very tall.
Sure.
We'll be pretty thin with our structure up there. Plus, we have a parapet around the building, so it shouldn't appear that high. And plus, it's stepped back from the woodward face, too. We almost have probably 15, 20 feet of separation. So these renderings are taking at, maybe eye level. There's probably a little bit of cheat factor in that where the rendering's taken, but I think it'll diminish itself because it's set back quite a distance from woodward. Hopefully that answers the question, but it hasn't changed.
Mr. Cruz?
Comment and question. So, and I would, as you seek a variance, I would encourage you to, look at the intent of the ordinance. Because I don't have an issue from a planning standpoint. It's an important site, and, as a percentage of the footprint of the building, it's probably 1% or something.
It's pretty minimal.
Peaks above that, but, so I think you meet the intent, but dive deeply into the T-zoning in this site, and hopefully that'll help you. So a question about, we don't see a lot of this, because we don't see a lot of rooftop terraces, but you have plant material up there. Can you speak to that? Is it being irrigated?
I'll jump back to
I don't
the
need to
floor
know the
plan.
species or anything, but it's
Yeah.
just, I guess my concern is, will it remain healthy?
Yeah, and there's
over
minimal
time,
plants. And right now, we're suggesting a few planters up here for this. So yeah, you're right, we haven't dug into the details yet, but we would need some type of irrigation if we are putting trees in potted plants. And again, we're suggesting that right now. We'd have to look into the feasibility and practicality of that. But yeah, there could be potted, there could be some, pots along the side here to help. We're trying to help green it up a little bit up there to make it an enjoyable space. So that's the idea.
Nice.
But yes, you're right, there would be some irrigation required for that.
Any other questions of the applicant?
You.
No? Thank you. very much. If we have anything, we'll come back to you. At this point, I'd like to go to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on the presentation and the proposed building at the corner of Woodward and Corton? If you are at home on Zoom, you can use the raise your hand function. If you are here in the building, you can come forward to the microphones. I don't see anybody coming forward. I don't see anybody on Zoom that is raising their hand. So I will bring it back to the board.
My apologies, for what it's worth, we do have material samples if you care to see them. It's pretty simple. It's brick, metal siding, and then we brought a glass sample. So if
Great.
you care to see them, we have them.
Anyone on the board care to see those outside of what we've already seen on the?
The darker
That's
gray
good.
color. and-
That's good.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Sorry about that.
All right. Board, any conversation other than what we've already had? I guess I'll just jump in and say that I'm really appreciative of the site being developed in the way that it is for the use that it's being used. It's a beautiful building. As you alluded to, you're going for 2 variances, and the Board of Zoning Appeals typically asks for our just general thoughts on that from a planning perspective. I know Mr. Kozak has provided his. I'll provide mine. I don't know that there's a way you can meet the 75% and still use the site. I don't have a problem with it. It's for the BZA to determine whether or not it's a true practical difficulty, but I don't think it is an issue if we were to allow this building to go in as it's proposed on that front. I'm not necessarily going to sit here and tell you I love the idea of just going above the zoning ordinance just because we want to. And that kind of sounds like what you're saying. It's a beautiful building, and I guess all I'll say to the BZA is if they find a difficulty and a reason to grant it, I would sure hope that there's a way that it could be contained specifically to that Zen garden. Because what I don't want to have is 3 more feet added onto this building in 5 years in an addition, even by a different developer, what have you. Other than that, I like how you've addressed the curb and gutter in the back. I still think you're going to need to work with engineering to ensure that no vehicles stick out past that into the alleyway. That's a liability issue for you. You might look at curb stops. Your civil's wrong about the ADA space, but I'll let you work that out with the building official. Other than that, I'm supportive of the project. Is there anyone else here to comment, or Mr. Scheer?
So, I mean, I agree as to the 75% frontage. As to the height, I think, I agree that it should not be master the whole building. But I just point out that given the placement of this site on the, 2 very busy roads, quite a distance from other buildings and residences, from a planning perspective, I don't have a problem with the 3-foot. It's as long as it's, I guess, limited to this set of plans.
Fair point.
Just a point of clarification, because you said it, I want to drive it home, that variances are tied to the plan submitted.
Okay.
So they couldn't just whip it up 3 feet in other
Good.
places without
As is the slope.
addressing it.
The slope is tied to the planes also.
Pretty fair.
Correct.
Fair enough. Any other comments from the board? We'll go, Mr. Kirk.
I think a solution to what you talked about, the cars overhanging the separation between the parking lot and the alley, looks like they're trying to accomplish that there by having a wider separation. Looks like it's even landscaped to make it the width of like a max overhang of like a F-150 or something. And you wouldn't have the overhang, they wouldn't have the encroachment of the alley.
I just want to underscore the comments about the height. I think it's such an important building in this area that, the more height we can give it at that point, the better. And if it's contained to that one specific part, then I'd strongly favor that at this site.
Great. Mr. Williams.
As long as we're trying to help the Board of Zoning Appeals, I'll offer my comments also on the height. I would agree, limited to this location, but I also think it adds character to the building in addition to maybe the enjoyment of the employees inside. It does add character as you study the building. So I'm in favor of it. I hope the waiver is granted, but only as to that specific location. And I think the language of the resolution, particularly on the SLUP, when you get approval for a SLUP, it's limited to the site plan as submitted. So if there's a change, you got to come back.
Okay. Any further conversation, or is anyone interested in
Mr.
motion.
Chair, the honorable. Time-honored tradition
How did I get this?
by default.
You opened your mouth.
I didn't.
Mr. Scher.
I move the planning board adopt the findings of the planning department in the report dated October 22, 2025, related to the approval criteria outlined in Article 7, Section 7.36 of the zoning ordinance, and recommend approval of the special land use permit application for 36977 Woodward Avenue in Vestwise Financial, subject to the following conditions. Number one, modify the site plan so that at least 75% of the street frontage consists of building facade located within 0 to 5 feet of the front lot line, or obtain a variance of 21.675 feet from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Number two, lower the overall building height to no more than 42 feet in accordance with the ordinance requirements, or obtain a variance of 3 feet from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Number three, provide 2 bike racks to service the building. Number four, the planning board grants a waiver for non-cutoff light fixtures pursuant to Article 4, Section 4.21D1 of the zoning ordinance. And number five, comply with the requests of all city departments.
Support.
Motion, Mr. Scher, support, Mr. Williams. Conversation at the board on the motion. Seeing none to the public. Does anyone from the public have a comment on the motion to recommend approval of the special land use permit? Anyone from the public have a comment on the motion? I see no hands going up. We'll bring it back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 7-0. We move on to final site plan and design review. Any? Mr. Scher?
Deviate a little bit from the motion that was proposed. I move the planning board adopt the findings of the planning department in the report dated October 22, 2025, related to the approval criteria outlined in Article 7, I think it's Section 7.27 of the zoning ordinance, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And recommend approval of the final site plan and design review for 36799 Woodward Avenue with the following conditions. And then I would repeat the same 5 conditions.
Mr. Chair, I believe, did you say recommend approval or approve?
Recommend. I'm sorry, approve.
Thank you.
I did say recommend, but I should have said we recommend
approval.
We adopt the findings.
And then we approve the findings.
the site plan, final site plan, the design review.
So we have a motion to approve by Mr. Scher. Do we have a second?
Support.
Support, Mr. Williams. Conversation at the board. To the public, one last time. Anybody have a comment on the motion to approve the final design and final site plan and design review? No hands going up. Bring it back to the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck. Hope to see you under construction in mere weeks.
Thanks again for your time.
Get out of here. All right, our next item on the agenda, Mr. Dupuy, was 2333 Cole Street, but I see that's been withdrawn, correct?
It's been fully withdrawn for consideration, yes.
All right.
No action needed, nothing in the agenda, it's just kind of,
All right, well, let's move forward then to our next item, which is the zoning ordinance project. Before we move on to that tonight, I do have a few comments that I would like to make for the record. It's no secret that I used to work in the architectural engineering and planning industry. It's not a secret either that I was president and majority shareholder of a consulting firm that has an office here in Birmingham. I had anticipated that perhaps my former firm might wish to submit a proposal based on the RFP that we submitted, and therefore I met with the city manager, the city attorney, Mr. Dupuy, before the RFP was even developed, to determine what the appropriate approach would be and to receive some direction. I explained to them then, as I do now, that I retired from my former company nearly 2 years ago, almost 2 years to the week. And I do not own any shares of stock. I am not affiliated with them on either a contractual or even an informal basis. I receive no compensation nor any profit sharing. I have no financial stake in the business. I am, however, still being paid for shares that I did sell with the terms of a promissory note. And to me, that would present the perception of perhaps a conflict of interest. The city attorney and the city manager and Mr. Dupuy all agreed that I would need to recuse myself in the event that my firm did submit a proposal. I was informed by Mr. Dupuy just several weeks ago when the proposals came in that my former employer did in fact submit a proposal, and I immediately recused myself from all proceedings related to this project, and I am doing so now on the public in order to make it very clear to everybody that I'm being transparent about this. I know both Mr. Dupuy and Mr. Williams can attest to the fact that I have not had any contact with them on the process or on any of the proposals, and in fact, I haven't even read them because there's no point. I will leave the process, whatever it shall be, to the Vice Chair, Mr. Williams, and the rest of the board, whatever that process may be again. And we'll just recuse myself from the rest of this selection process, knowing that if and when any firm is selected, I would come back to the chair and to chair our work on the project once everything is selected. So with that, Mr. Williams, I bid you adieu.
Thanks.
I'd offer a snappy phrase, but I'll decline.
Sounds like you need a job.
See you around, Scott. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right. Have a good night. Okay. Well, we have, by my count, 6 submissions to review. Before I ask Mr. Dupuy to make some general comments, let me give a few remarks. For those watching on TV, the bandage on top of my head is not as a result of this meeting. But in all seriousness, 6 submissions means that we need to discuss all 6 tonight. We have preliminarily submitted ratings, our own evaluations, tentative evaluations, and I use the emphasis of the word tentative because they were submitted without really any discussion amongst our peer group here, and they were submitted without any due diligence efforts that we were aware of. So they were at best preliminary. I would like to turn the meeting discussion over to Mr. Dupuy at this point for his initial remarks, and then once done, we will proceed to discuss all 6 proposals, and I will basically pick them at random in no particular order, not alphabetical, not a date of submission, but just on my own whim of who gets discussed first, so that it'll appear to the public totally arbitrary in the manner in which we discuss them. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, so I guess my tact here today is not only for us, but for anybody watching, anybody rewatching, to take you through a real high-level overview of kind of how we got here. And then after that, take you through what we should be doing next, our kind of future goals in the short term. So all the way back to 2023, that's in May, that's when we adopted the Birmingham Plan 2040. That's our 20-year comprehensive master plan that replaced a litany of other master plans and sub-area plans. And within that plan, of course, in the 130, 140 range, recommendations, all prioritized. We did our exercises post-May 2023 to do our own prioritization. And no matter which way you fold it, the zoning ordinance update was always at the top. It's what the consultant recommended. It's what we decided as a group to tackle first. It's frankly the logical thing to tackle first. So due to the timing, May 2023, that's right at the end of a fiscal year, a government fiscal year. July 1 to June 30 is a fiscal year. So in that first swing at it, we did not have, or were unsuccessful in getting funds to support a zoning ordinance update. The next cycle, of course, we were successful. So we were allocated $200,000 from the City Commission to perform this work. That was not advertised. Of course, it was in our budget. We didn't go out to the RFP and said, hey, we have $200,000, but it's what we have. So we did a lot of work together to build what I thought was a very good RFP. And if I may say so myself, I think the results showed that. I think all the time we took, all the detail-oriented, attention we put towards it, enabled 6 consultants to submit 6, honestly, very good in their own rights, in their own respects, proposals. I'm very pleased with what we got. I would also say, just as a thank you to you all, it's very clear that everyone took their time and did a really good amount of diligence in reviewing them. I thought the scores were good and the notes were interesting and appropriate. I'm very excited to hear more about what your thoughts are. But just from me to you, thank you for taking the time to do that. I know it was literally 300 pages of RFP responses, not light reading whatsoever, but it was really good to see. The results we'll talk one by one, as Brian suggested, as we should. The cost ranges were anywhere from $165,000 to $340,000. Another interesting thing, the timelines ranged from 11 months to 24 months. As a side note, our RFP, we suggested we wanted to be done by December 31, 2027. So every proposal was within that time frame. When we received the proposals, we did the checks in terms of submission requirements. What were you required to submit? Everyone submitted everything they were supposed to submit, so we did not consider eliminating anybody on those types of technicalities. We were able to kind of dive in without worrying about those types of things. And lastly, just full disclosure, you mentioned evaluations, preliminary, tentative, just kind of reading through it based on the evaluation criteria we provided to consultants or potential bidders. An internal staff team also did evaluations. So the planning department, 3 members of the building department, and 2 members of the assistant city manager's office, as well as the city attorney's office, all did our own evaluations. So what I've got here in front of me are the tabulations, and we can talk about that later. But pretty equal in terms of evaluations, save a couple, but we'll dig in more why when we select the first one. So Brian, if
Okay.
I may.
So let me indicate what I think the objective of the planning board is tonight. To me, the objective is to determine which of the 6 entities submitting the application that we would like to schedule for an interview at our regular November planning board meeting. That means the task before the planning board tonight is to pick anywhere, hopefully from 1 to 6 of
Yes,
people to
thank you.
bring in for the interview. If we invite 6 in, I would tend to think that we'll be here all night and morning. But I don't want to prejudge it. I want to discuss these each individually and get your thoughts. And ultimately, we can decide whether at the conclusion of each of the discussions items that we want to invite that entity in for an interview. I'm also cognizant that the public has an opportunity in this to be heard. And so I will permit the public to comment after the discussion of each of the 6 entities as opposed to waiting until the very end. If that's acceptable, then we should start.
Can I make a general comment?
Yeah.
So this is probably the 6th or more time as a public official that I've reviewed RFPs of this sort. And what I've come to, the conclusion I've come to is that evaluating a written submission only, which is what we're doing here tonight, is really only a partial, and I think somebody used the word tentative sort of a thing. The references, the interviews are part of it. So I, for myself, don't want anybody to think that my scoring was hard and fast, and this is what I think, and not changeable. I think it is. And I think that certainly keep an open mind pending references, other folks' thoughts, and the experience within the interview itself. I've seen what looked like great written submissions that either in the reference and interview process turned out to be not quite so good, or worse yet, in the performance, not as good as they should have been, or not up to the quality of the written. So,
Yeah. Now, there's one other thing I haven't commented on. As we get to each of the 6 submissions, I think it's appropriate to ask Mr. Dupuy before we start whether he has done any due diligence inquiries with respect to each of the entities. At the last meeting, we basically turned that task over to Mr. Dupuy, and so when we start each of the 6, I would initially ask Nick if you would comment on any of the references that you may have checked. Not that you've checked everybody. If you did, you'd have been on the phone for a month straight with all of them. But the ones you have, please comment. Okay, in no particular order, if we're ready to start, I'm going to start with Place Strategies in Traverse City, Michigan. So, Mr. Dupuy, let me ask you, with respect to the submission by Brad Longberger, et cetera, did you check any of his references or any of the references of that entity?
Well, I appreciate you starting with one of the two that I haven't gotten to. Thanks for that. But so the short answer is no. I've not called references on these. The only things I've done in terms of due diligence with this one is to try and click through and find, click through their examples that they submitted just to see about the user experience of those codes since they submitted them as project examples. That is all I've done. I have not called the references, nor have I looked into the staff.
I think it's also appropriate, so I want to have the board discuss this, and then I want basically you on behalf of the city to comment on your impressions and what the impressions of those who have reviewed the applications from the city's standpoint. So I'll open it for discussion. Comments from the planning board with respect to the submission by Place Strategies. Robin.
I'll kick off. I was of the impression that this was a team that did not have significant experience. They presented an interesting approach to this. But when I looked to their experience, I discovered that there were 2 small suburbs, very small suburbs in Texas. One of them, Aledo, had a population of 4,858 at the 220 census. These are very suburban. They didn't have the diversity that we have here with an old industrial area which has been modernized, a vibrant downtown. But it did have lots of residential, but it didn't have the material, the sort of substance that we have to deal with. I was under impressed by their experience and accordingly gave it a very low ranking.
Okay. Any other comments? Dan?
So I was struck that it was what I'll call the leanest of the proposals. It had not as much detail as the others and as I might have expected. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it was also the leanest staffing. And I was pleased to see they had one of the relatively few people who were listed was somebody who seemed to specialize in process. And I know one of the things that we were hoping to do was to get the zoning ordinance, the application and the submissions and those sorts of process things updated and improved. So I thought that was a significant or a good thing. But in general, it was, I guess, I don't know if I gave it the lowest or the second lowest score, but just because of the lack of detail and, lack of numerous reference jobs.
Bert?
So I'm going to make some general comments, and then I'll dive into this. One is, these were 6 incredible proposals where and I'm not an expert in this type of plan, so my judgment is based on, as an architect and being on this planning board and
Speaking to the mic.
and caring about these things. So, any of these firms, I think, had experience and had people on their team that could do this project. So I was looking for what are the differences, and are they strong enough to have somebody rise to the top? So, so their fee, I just shifted to the next one.
20,000.
Right, so they didn't know the fee, but they're in line, so it's not like you're paying extra for somebody and you don't have the budget to do it. So they're in line there. They had, got some pieces of paper here, they had 11 months, I think, duration, so that was, they were on the shorter side.
No, they're through 2027.
Are they?
McKenna was the one at 11 months.
Oh, okay. And then they had, in my mind, they had a complex team structure. And, you know, it wasn't all done under one umbrella. And my concern is have these people work together before, who's in charge, who's doing what, who's facilitating it. Do they all show up at a meeting, or is it one? So that was a concern for me, and then I agree with the projects that they used as examples. They didn't seem to align with sort of the scope of what our community is about in terms of size and being somewhat urban. So for that reason, I did knock them down somewhat.
Okay. Other comments?
I have no experience with this type of proposal either, but I just thought this Place Strategies had the thinnest proposal compared to the other five, of the six. And the staffing was, I think, the thinnest as well. I gave it the lowest score.
See, any comments?
Basically,
From the city's perspective, can you give your thoughts on this one?
Agree with much, and I'd like to expand. When I say it looked thin, I thought that it felt to me like they may have just sort of regurgitated a lot from the RFP and didn't expand enough for me to get a good idea of that they understand what they're really up against here, and I guess in specific to things like public engagement, I didn't really get a clean thread throughout. Otherwise, though, I would at least say I checked these all to see if they did a little diligence on like the 2040 plan, and I checked for mentions of the 2040 plan. They did. I appreciated the themes that they have throughout of their approach and the different things they focus on as a firm or collection of firms. I just didn't think that they expanded enough on, I guess, specifically the scope of work, but a few other things as well.
I'll give my thoughts before we go to the public, and that is, I thought that their experience, frankly, was the least experienced of the six in terms of municipalities or cities or counties or whatever you want to reference of all of any of the six. They had the least relevant experience that we would examine or reference check. So that's, to me, an important consideration. Even though we are not a huge community, we are a very diverse community, both as to residential and commercial and industrial, and therefore this process is not going to be necessarily easy. And I don't think, my own view is I don't think they have the experience that we can reference and simply say, well, they've been through a war like this before. I just don't see it. So I'm going to turn to the public, whether the public, we have one public here in attendance, but if I can't tell based on my screen whether anybody's online. Nobody?
No.
Okay. I'll give you my impression. I don't see them, this entity, making the interview in November. Is there any disagreement? Okay. One down.
So, good question. So, as we go through this, wasn't sure, Nick, whether your comments were your personal comments or they were consensus comments from all the group that you had assembled.
A little bit of both.
Okay, and we'll
I'll
make
try to
sure
be
you
more
do that
specific.
again.
I'll be more specific next time if I am leaning.
All right,
heavy.
second entity in no particular order, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but from the city of Chicago, Jose Levine. Did I pronounce it correctly, Nick?
Yeah.
And I'd simply ask Nick to commence the discussion there.
Okay, so
How were they, what were the tentative reviews by the city and the planning board with respect to House Levine? Strengths and weaknesses, if you could summarize.
yep, some of the main things, I'll start with the references. So I was able to call all of their references that they provided. I was only able to get a hold of one. The others I left voicemails for. So I expect a call back. In fact, one already has a message in my machine right now. So the person I did talk to from Wisconsin mentioned all the things you can imagine, that they appreciated that they came in under budget. They thought it was a great firm. Their public engagement was fantastic. They emphasized their GIS capabilities, which I think really came through in their proposal, but also their code writing and their general responsiveness. They, along with GIS, by the way, because it's also very obvious in here, heavy focus on graphics, so which they appreciated, and frankly, the review team, the internal review team appreciated. Lastly, I made an attempt, because we've got so many proposals for out-of-state firms, to ask other folks that hired out-of-state firms what their experiences were. So in this case, no problems. They had, the responsiveness is good. Of course, they did a lot of virtual meetings, but they didn't find it to be a problem. And in this case, Hansfield Levine came through on what they promised to come through on. So some more internal notes about Hansfield Levine. There was a pretty good range of evaluations and opinions on Hansfield Levine. They thought that, but we also agreed that the graphic GIS aspect of their proposal was very intriguing. Both the analysis side of things from their, like, I guess I'll call it, I don't know the exact term they used, but their housing or building analysis using GIS, their special proprietary, it seemed, or advanced access to Esri, the ArcGIS software, was very intriguing. They also developed their own graphics and are able to provide those. When I checked the links, they all worked, which was nice. And I saw in a couple of the links some very nice graphics, which I think is what we're looking for. We all know the ones in our current ordinances are not up to snuff. I also liked how detailed, I should say we, excuse me, I just keep saying I. Well, maybe I should say I liked how detailed the scope of work was. Others found it a little bit confusing. Maybe it's the way they numbered it, maybe not. There's a bunch of optional tasks woven in. Some people got confused by the ZPAC, ZTAC concept. By the way, not only Hansfield Levine, but Play Strategies and everybody else seemed to have some sort of proposal for an internal committee, where they called it a steering committee or an advisory committee. So Hansfield Levine was included in that. But the other thing that we noticed as a staff, which is something to consider, not a deal breaker, but it looks like we might get a little bit more than we asked for out of this, in that they are suggesting that they can do our sign standards as well, all under the, with their base budget, all under budget. So we'd get a little bit of extra out of this in the sign code update. I know that you all don't work with signs very often, but we do, and it is in dire need
It needs
of an
that.
update.
Yes.
So,
We've been saying that for
They ended
17
up-
years.
I know. They ended up very highly rated in the top 3 overall. So,
Let me, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I want to start this one off by two points. One, the reference to, and I don't know if you check references, but if you didn't, you should check Hinsdale, Illinois, which is the city of comparable size to us, a western suburb in Illinois, suburb of Chicago, probably very similar demographics. It has some commercial. I don't know that it has industrial, but it certainly has the blend of commercial and residential. I have to say I was struck by one thing, and I don't have an answer for this, but, and that is the experience of who's going to be guiding this effort, and that is, if I can get to the page, the person in, the project manager would be Carrie Papelbon, whose experience as a project manager for this entity has been 3 months on the job. A little over a year working for this entity, but 10 years in a suburb of Milwaukee where she was basically had Nick's job. But so that is a little disconcerting to me that I don't understand whether the principal oversight, John Husseil, is getting out of the business, not participating anymore. I did go online to check. She is appearing in front of various entities where they've been retained, and I've looked at minutes of meetings where she's made presentations since July. But that's not a very long track record to depend on. That's the significant negative, and I hit him pretty hard on that issue, I must say. Okay, let me open it for other discussion. Robin, you have any start?
I similarly have concerns about Ms. Papelbon. She's not been very experienced. On the other hand, I thought the presentation was outstanding. The use of graphics, their ability to build a platform, an online platform that would be accessible to one and all throughout the process. A number of them do that, but they make it a big deal, backed up by extremely good graphics. We can all admit, we might as well get it on the table here, that we're in the area of hybrid Euclidean and form-based coding. I mean, this is getting into the weeds, and I don't want to get too technical about it, but that's where we are. We're in the middle of it. It's neither one or the other. I think their balance in looking at their materials was pretty damn good, I have to say. By form-based code, we're moving away just from the traditional land use to questions of dimension and design that is part of the course. I would underscore everything that's been said by the chair just now. I think their experience in the suburbs of the major cities in the Midwest is valuable. I like the fact that they chose a date that was in between. It was neither, sort of 12 months or 24. They said, well, we can do this in 18, and we'll come in under budget with perhaps some expenditure for other meetings, which I thought was good. Obviously, we looked at Flint, because that's where they did their work in Michigan, and they did both ends, if I can remember correctly. They did their master plan, and then the
Zoning.
The zoning, and if we don't have references from there, then I think we should. We should certainly get some feedback from the folks in Flint. I know it's a different place, and obviously they're dealing with huge problems there, but I think their experience of working with this team is good. If it's of any interest, this man is a bit of a hero in the world. He really is extremely well known.
Yeah.
John, I can never pronounce his name. Husseil is very well known and has an outstanding reputation.
I have to say before, and I didn't mention it, their list of projects is as extensive as anyone of the six. And in fact, probably more extensive than any of the six. And particularly with respect to comparables to Birmingham.
And finally, just finish, they scored highly in my rating.
Other comments?
So I have a specific comment here, but it's generally applicable to the the whole group. Everybody, I think somebody noted that everybody has some sort of setup for not just public engagement, but for a steering committee kind of concept. And most of them have they're suggesting a steering committee composed of various segments of the community. This group has both what I call a policy committee and a technical committee. So I'm a little concerned about the bureaucracy inherent in all those committees. And I suspect that for everybody who suggested a committee, that they're probably willing to be flexible with us about what the public engagement looks like and what the steering committee looks like. And we've had some very preliminary discussions about, how that might work. But I think that for whoever it is that we interview, if they are one who suggested one or more committees, then we want to discuss with them how wedded they are to exactly what they proposed and how flexible they are in terms of designing something that works for Birmingham, because we all want an effective public engagement program, and we also want an effective and efficient process to complete the zoning rewrite. And for some of these, I thought with all of the committees, I didn't see how they were going to get it done in 11 months or 18 months or 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Some of them even suggested, in fact, one of them, if I remember correctly, I wrote it and said, an advisory committee.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's do we take advice from them? Or so I like the steering one a bit better. And don't want to be advised by another body. But I take your point. There is a lot of moving parts.
It's worth noting, just to build on that, that in the Housing Levine proposal, the Z-TAC, the technical one, is optional, and that our flexibility may lie in our boards and commissions that are supposed to comprise of the Z-PAC. We seat a lot of these technical types of people on our different boards and committees, so I don't think we'd be hard-pressed to find an architect, for example, that sits on a board, might I say, or an engineer that sits on a board. So I like to think like you, Mr. Sheridan. I would hope they're flexible.
I'll put it this way, if any of them are listening, if they're not flexible, they won't get the work.
Hey, let it all out.
Nassim, any comments?
Yeah, on this one, I actually really appreciated the detailed breakdown of tasks within each step. It was a lot to absorb and get through, but to me, it reflected the thought that was put into it, and I appreciated kind of, more than just we'll do community engagement. It's here's what community engagement means to us, and here are our proposed steps for you. So I liked that. I was a little, not concerned, but one of my notes was, maybe not as many communities both in Michigan that are comparable to Birmingham. So I appreciate hearing from you, Nick, that what you've heard so far from a city that used them, and they were not local to them, that it worked really well and they were super responsive and they had no concerns. And I also appreciate hearing, Nick, that kind of feedback from staff or the city at large that their proposal regarding the signage would be really valuable. It's sort of something that I kind of flipped right through. So thanks for highlighting that.
Oh, sure.
Bert? I ranked it probably one of the highest. I thought the proposal was probably the most concise and graphically was very well done. I think it's an 18-month duration, so it's sort of in the middle, so not too aggressive, but not too long. Their fee seemed generally in line, and if I agree with you that our signage ordinance does need updating, and why let that lag? Why not clean it up along with the rest of this? How do you treat out of like reimbursable expenses for travel, things like that? Was that built into the basic fee, or is that?
Yeah, at this point, we would have expected them to build it in. Otherwise,
Okay. So for,
Because we're going to sign like, for example, in this scenario, if we were to sign with Halsey Levine, the contract would say 199,855. We wouldn't be accepting anything over for the
right,
most
so
part.
they're from Chicago, not Hawaii, so it's
Take the
close.
train.
This is being recorded.
Robin will
Yeah,
pick
I
them up
looked at the
trains.
Wake Forest. I went to that website, and again, I thought it was very well done.
Flint's pretty good.
And, you know, from the quote-unquote out-of-state firms, I guess I'd like to get these guys to an interview and have a conversation with them. So I think they do have some roots here
Yeah.
in Michigan. They actually submitted a proposal on the master plan, and they scored really high, but their fee was like really high.
So maybe they've learned.
They've learned, right, so, and-
As I indicated, my concern is just with
Green, they use the green.
the project manager here and her lack of experience, but that's not a reason to disqualify them, but it's probably a reason to have them
Sure.
explain.
Yes, definitely.
And I would like to know what they mean by having Mr. Hosale in some kind of advisory capacity. What does that actually mean in the context of their proposal?
I think they use the word oversight, if I remember correctly.
Principal oversight, yeah.
There's a little
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah.
Just kind of off to the side.
Yeah, it's off to the side.
Yeah.
That's the one that struck me.
Yeah, so that's my main concern.
You know,
Any comments you have?
I thought it was a really good proposal. I don't know, it was one of my top three, but I did take note that like was mentioned, they worked on Flint's master plan and zoning, which had to be a challenge. It's only,
well, I'd just like to make one final comment. I love the phrase they use, plan and regulation alignment,
Yeah.
which is actually what we're trying to do, is to align the tools that we've got to the policy that was developed in the master plan. I like that. Just to say it is good.
Okay, to the public, before we reach any conclusions. Anybody online? Nick? Nope. Okay, I guess my conclusion, having heard all of you, is they're going to make the interviews.
hope so.
And their proposal ranked pretty high, and I think you need to tell them, they need to explain
Who's going
who's doing the managing and
Who's doing the work?
you know, otherwise we could save $200,000 and just hire Nick.
I said I'd do it for 150.
Okay,
10 weeks.
Oh,
Next.
160? Oh, you're right.
Clarion and Smith Group.
And everybody else.
And, sorry, yeah.
OHM.
Yeah,
OHM.
God, yes.
And OHM, three-pronged sword. Nick?
So this would be the second one that I have not been able to call references for, but intend to. I think there might be an obvious reason we saved it for last. I think that obvious reason everyone talked about internally is the very high cost. At $340,000, it was by far the highest bid. I was able to try and click through some of their codes. I think it looked nice. But it was hard to get past that price point. The main, I guess the kicker, which may stem from the sort of complicated trilogy of consultants here, is internal staff found it a little difficult to follow which task, when, where, and how. I appreciate their attempt at this team roll table. I think it certainly helped, but for us, it left a little uncertainty as to what we can expect and who and when, and maybe a little bit of continuity issues, we felt. So other than that, of course, I mean, their experience was good. OHM's and Smith Group are well-known around here. Clarion was new to me, but not really a problem necessarily. Another out-of-stater, though. So they did end up ranking a little low in our internal review.
Okay. My thoughts were exactly as you've stated. I think it's complicated to have three entities, and I think that's part of the reason the price is up, because everybody wants a piece of it. And it struck me that this entity, which is out of state, wanted local connections and felt that was important for the bid. And maybe I would say one is plenty, two is, I don't know who's in charge or who we'd even be meeting with. So it was, to me, that part of it was confusing. On the other hand, their experience is significant on the plus side, and the two entities in Michigan are both highly regarded. So that's a plus. But the cost factor is, the only problem I had with our rating system is the rating thing only had 5%.
You wanted to
And
take
I wanted
more.
to give them a huge negative number and for the cost. So, other thoughts by other people? Robin, I'll start with you again.
I found it interesting that they were so far over. It raised a red flag with me from the get-go, as if that they don't really want the job, but they want to put their name out there. It was just a very well put together proposal that, in my opinion, and I wrote this down, so I'll just quote it back to you, it's too big, it's too broad, and it's too expensive. Covers too many bases. They are a very, very competent group. I mean, layering Smith Group onto it is like, 3 layers of ice cream on top of your cake. I mean, it's just, no disrespect to anybody else, but they're, that's over the top. Mm-hmm. That's what I felt.
Okay.
Even although their experience, by the way, is great. I mean, they worked in a lot of our smaller Oak Park, Hazel Park, Dearborn. I mean, there's lots and lots of good grainy material. And OHM are very good, but it's too much. Simply too much.
Nazim?
Yeah, to agree with what's been said, but I would also add, I thought their references to the 2040 plan were just sort of surface level, not really in depth. And same goes for their community outreach and engagement portions of the proposal. I thought that was just discussed really broadly without the same level of detail that, at least for me, was, I thought, much more helpful in some of the other proposals.
Bert?
Frankly, I was surprised that Smith Group didn't submit a proposal on their own.
On their own.
They've been around for 150 years, and they certainly have people that can do this. So it seemed like an odd team, and that adds cost. I think this had the longest duration at 24 months.
Right.
I think that's too long and too many chefs in the kitchen, and so I agree with the other comments, and therefore scored them quite a bit lower than the others.
Dan?
Don't have anything to add that hasn't been said.
Just, I was confused by the structure, who does what.
The role.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our tour guide is left.
I'll go look and see if there's anybody online. If you want to call for public
Yeah.
comment.
Same as before.
Brian, what do you think?
There's no one there.
Too expensive. To me, it was confusing. I didn't know which entity was in charge of what portion of the project. And I don't want 3 different entities showing up at every meeting,
I'll go see who's online, but I didn't succeed.
because we'll wind up with cost overruns.
Look at
340 will seem pale by comparison. Nobody? Online? Okay. I think the sense is that Clarion does not make the interview. Is that in general agreement?
Yes.
I would agree.
Okay. Skimming right through this. Next entity, Giffords Webster. Nick?
Okay, yes, great. I was able to call their references. They had plenty, so no problem getting a hold of a couple of people. I should have mentioned this earlier. Of course, if you leave a reference, it's well expected that in theory they speak highly of you. So all of these references spoke highly in most regards. I did try to dig down on a couple of things, and with Giffords Webster, it was worthwhile noting that for the North Dakota one, Horace, North Dakota, the reference they left no longer worked there. I spoke with a new person who had no experience with it, so all I was able to ask them was how the product was. And they said it was fine. Otherwise, in East Bay, I spoke with Claire up there. I think her name's Claire, forgive me, but she was very happy with Giffords Webster. They did a whole rewrite, just like we're expecting to do here. Met all the expectations. She felt as though they were really good at the deep dive kind of stuff. If they sent them on a side quest, there are planners there that were assigned to this team were ready and able to do those kinds of deep dives, which I expect we'll have a couple of those as well. There were, however, similar to your comment earlier about others, a lot of examples in here. So I want to make it clear that I did not call all of these. I just called the references they left.
How about Saginaw?
Yes, I did call Saginaw. It's one of the ones I had to leave a voicemail for.
That what? Left a
I
message?
left a message. I did not talk with Saginaw. The other things I asked, because it's kind of important to us internally, was Giffords Webster, it's very obvious that they are working us toward their clear zoning or, clear zoning
Yeah.
product, which is fine. It's a nice product. I've used it in other places. It's very linkable. You can click and navigate really easily. The problems with clear zoning, though, are, I might pitch a question to you. I don't know if that's really what we want. We already service, we contract with Encode, where we have our online, hosted zoning ordinance that works fantastically. I don't know that we want to switch formats. I think the clear zoning issue is a big issue on the internal side of things. I asked a lot about that, though, on the references, the ones that used.
Yeah.
What I found interesting that might be worth noting here is that it seems as though Giffords Webster, when they create that clear zoning document, they own that document. So it's not a PDF. If we were to do an amendment, we're going to have to contract with them to update that clear zoning document, as opposed to our current system where, full disclosure, we do send it away and have Encode do it, but we also have the opportunity to do it ourselves if we'd like. So it's not as editable as a product as some of the other products. It was worth noting, a lot of people mentioned that they found it, I don't want to mischaracterize it, but at the end, they found it surprising that they had every amendment they did, they have to send to Giffords Webster and have them perform it. Otherwise, it's worth noting that we all mentioned again the overage on the budget.
Yes.
The base budget, it's almost 30 grand over, which is a consideration. But everything else, it's clear they're local, it's clear they have local experience, it's clear their planners are high quality. We've worked with some of their planners before on other things. They're high quality planners, public sector consultants, high quality body, no problems with
My
that.
experience with public sector consultants on a different matter is they're excellent.
They are.
We haven't talked about it much tonight, but that's important in this city to have, and frankly, I like a separate entity running the public engagement part of this, because I think there won't be as much defensiveness if there's criticism running to the entity that didn't actually prepare the code itself. And I think that's a plus. Now, is it worth $22,000 extra? That's the question. But anytime you get multiple entities in this, I think the price goes up. That's just the fact of life. But on the plus side, I think the city of Birmingham would benefit greatly from public sector consultants' role in this. They're in Lansing. They're not southeastern Michigan. They will have independence, and they will, I think, ferret out public concerns over certain aspects of the plan. And look, no matter what we do, no matter how this goes, there will be concerns. Period. We know that. So that to me was the plus part of this. The only question I have, and I just don't know the answer to this, how much of Giffords is zoning code preparation and how much of it is consulting on a regular basis for miscellaneous matters? I don't know the answer to that. My sense of Giffords is they represent a lot of municipalities in the state. How much of it is drafting zoning is a different issue. It could be entirely satisfactory. I just don't know the answer. Okay, Robin.
Yeah, I just concur with both of you, actually. I don't want to speak out of turn. I mean, a lot of us know Giffords and know them well, not just through Scott, but through their staff. The person running this used to work in this office, did Nick's job. She's extremely well known. And the clear zoning issue is one that I think we need to think long and hard about. Clear zoning was a product that came through a different company that was eventually bought by Giffords Webster, and for a limited period of time, the architect of clear zoning was part of the team. He's no longer part of the team, but his imprint is on clear zoning and how they use it. And so I think we need to think about that one. Their experience in Southeast Michigan is as rich as almost any, not quite as rich as two of the bigger consultants, but it's still pretty damn good. But I similarly raised the point that the chair did about they're really good at servicing municipalities. That's their job. They do that. You know, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, they're out there. Are they developing major innovative platforms for zoning? I don't know. Clear zoning was their innovation. Has it moved on? That's my question.
Naseem?
I don't think, nothing to add. I mean, I think it's all been said.
Bert?
So I don't know this public sector consultants, and I don't see what we're embarking on to be so controversial. I see this, a lot of it boilerplate stuff.
Yeah.
This is not the master plan. This is
No,
not.
I know.
It's
But
not that.
I think you have to anticipate.
Well, so.
We know that there are going to be issues raised that are going to create controversy.
Well, so I know Giffords Webster. I like the fact that they're in town, and I know Jill, who's the partner in charge, who would lead this. If I'm an architect to design a building for the city, I don't know that I want public sector do they speak the language? You know, the author, I presume, will be Jill and her staff. So, but because we think we're going to have controversy, somebody else comes in.
Well, I
And
think
are
it
they
ties
answering
into
the
their
questions?
charrette concept that they have built in here. And that's where you'd see public sector consultants running the charrettes or participating in the charrettes, ferreting out the comments, what do you mean by this, sorting it out from the public's perception.
I understand that. Are they planners?
No.
They're just kumbaya, we're gonna.
Yeah, my sense of them, where I have seen them work, and not in this context, is they almost fill the role of an entity that you can raise issues that maybe you wouldn't raise directly with the planner or the city.
Yeah, but that's fair, so.
But I don't mean to overstate it either.
Was a little bit high.
Yeah.
Okay, my concern was when you get too many chefs, are they, so you're suggesting they might add value, they add cost, but are they going to add a layer of, if there's a question that comes up, who answers that?
Right.
Is it that person facilitating, or is it the author? That's just, and that might be interesting at an interview to have those conversations.
Yeah. How would you intend to
so-
handle the charrettes,
Right.
frankly?
Right, so 24 months, I still think is too long for what we're embarking on.
Right.
So I suppose those are negotiable too. Work plans are negotiable. We have a committee, don't we have a committee? I mean, those are all things that you can work out with your consultant. And then the example projects, I thought they were very different than Birmingham. And then I think when I poked around a little bit, some of the graphics were weaker, obviously, compared to Houselow.
I didn't sense they had anything comparable to Hinsdale, Illinois. I hate to keep bringing up Hinsdale, but I know the city, and you could put the Birmingham sign on the front door there, and you'd think you were in Birmingham.
So, if does being local never figured into
No.
how we measure here, but it can bring value because
It brings accountability.
we know where you live,
Yeah.
and
There's no place to hide.
so
If your office is on Maple, and it is,
right. So I don't know
everybody
where
knows where it is.
I don't know where others scored them, but I'd put them in for an interview, and I don't know this public sector consultants, and can they
We certainly want them
convince
to come
me
to
that
the interview.
that they can work with Giffords Webster and work seamlessly and know who's doing what and.
Okay, good points. Dan?
So I had one thought before and one thought listening to what we've been talking about. I really liked the way in which they were approaching community engagement.
Right.
And I liked in particular the fact that they started with zoning 101. I thought that's really perceptive.
Yeah.
That's kind of, at least as I envisioned community engagement unfolding, it's not the whole world. I mean,
Right.
people are going to walk in thinking it's everything, and to help bring people along to what exactly the process is, what zoning does, what it doesn't do. I thought that was really good, and they certainly have a good reputation. The kind of listening to you folks all talk, I'm wondering whether clear zoning is kind of required. If you take Giffords, you're getting clear zoning? Is that the way it works? Or can you swap platforms out? Is this a,
Take it or leave it.
exactly?
My understanding is the former, but I have not asked them directly.
Okay, so I mean, that would be, that would be pretty important, because I think that the notion of getting the best, most innovative thinking, I think is important, not so much necessarily that we have to adopt the most innovative practice, because sometimes today's practice is tomorrow's joke, or today's most innovative thought is tomorrow's joke. But to have the broadest base of things to choose from. So I kind of had them right on the border of interview or not, partly out of price, partly out of a sense of, are they really put it this way, I perceive this as both an assignment for somebody who's a really good technician and some innovative resources. And I wasn't sure where they laid it. I thought they're great technicians. I don't know if where they are on the innovative scale.
Right.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion at this point?
Yeah.
That we engage Nick in another of the consultants, because another of the consultants is the consultant that we've used for our ordinance. And in the sense that we're discussing, if we were to go with, hypothetical, we go with Giffords, we get clear zoning. If we go with Kendig Keast, what else do we get? Because we've got their product. That's what we use.
Yes. Well, they're next, I think.
Well, I didn't mean to, I don't mean to.
Well, it's okay. It's okay.
To take
Well,
over your
let-
role.
let me-
But I
let me-
think these are issues that,
Well,
we got to discuss.
Let's put this on hold with no decision. How's that?
Yeah, good idea.
And let's move.
All right, do you want to get the public?
Huh? Yeah, public comments on Giffords. Anything?
No, there's still nobody online.
Nobody on, it's only 200. Okay, next was Kendig Keys Collaborative with Encode Plus LLC. Sort of reminds me of the kid graduating from high school with,
Oh, the search
yeah,
for the body shop?
yeah. Okay,
Dallas, Nick.
go ahead.
All right. Great question. And there's a couple things. I might just meander towards the answer, but first, as I've been doing, I was able to call the references. And I got some interesting information to share with you. They left a lot of references. Of course, everyone spoke pretty highly of them. What a lot of people said in terms of their references was that it was nice to have someone challenging them to think bigger, think different, be a little more innovative here, there, and the other. They considered it based on their kind of vast experience that they seem to show in the projects that they did with other communities. They thought the responsiveness was really good. They thought their team was really good. Most of the references reflected the team that we would get as well. So I asked specifically about, I think it's Steve Sizemore is his name.
Yeah.
In this case, they were happy with Steve. Someone mentioned he's a little bit of a planning nerd, even they suggested, which someone mentioned a technician might be a better word for that. But what was
No, I like nerd better.
what I found very interesting? So in terms of what we could get with Encore that's different or new or worth the cost of admission, several of them, if not all of them, reading through my notes here, mentioned that during the process, that platform allows for sort of a cloud-based collaborative document to build over time. So there's a public-facing version of it where Duncan, you as a John Q. Public can go in there and add comments, kind of like a Google Doc, and it'll go straight to Kendig Keast. So they're kind of cutting out the middleman, cutting out sort of the loose leaf comments that they tend to get a lot of, and everyone mentioned that that was really good. A weird thread is that a lot of these projects happened during COVID. A lot of the projects happened during COVID, which happened with other consultants as well, but being an out-of-state consultant, I asked specifically, did you have any issues with the out-of-state factor? All of which said no, there were no issues with the out-of-state factor. They were still responsive, still available. So building on that on-code portion,
Can I ask
Please, yeah.
specific questions? Tell me about whether you talked to anybody from Northville Township,
oh,
Bloomfield Hills,
Portage.
or Portage?
yeah, Northville, in this case. Northville, because that's the one they left.
That ties into the submission number 6 indirectly.
Yep, something very interesting with Northville that wasn't specific to Kendig Keast, that happened in a couple of other instances as well. Northville did not go out to RFP for their zoning ordinance project.
Wow.
They, like many projects here, went master plan straight into zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And they built into their contracts optional, like an optional part 2, which Kendig Keast took advantage of. So they wrote their master plan and then went right into their zoning ordinance amendment.
Yeah.
So that's the principal reason as to why they went with Kendig Keast, was the master plan to zoning ordinance factor. So they also had no problems. They they felt as though the OnCode Plus platform was a huge draw for them, because like most people I talked to, the previous ordinances were clunky, they were stuck in Municode, all text, really dull, and they really appreciated that modernization aspect of OnCode. So I hope that answers that question. I did not talk to the other one you mentioned
Okay,
in Michigan.
all right.
So then, to answer a little bit of your question in a different way. So if we were to go with someone else that does not have the OnCode deliverable, we would have to pay OnCode to re-upload that in its new form. With this, it seems like we wouldn't have to make that step. They would just do that as a part of this project.
Do you have a sense of how much more that would be? As a
Forgive me, I
à
do
la
not.
carte?
When we engaged with OnCode at the beginning, it was upwards of $100,000, but that was a fresh, brand-new platform. So I don't think it'd be as much now, but it's costly. And the amendments are costly, in the thousands. So I think that's the angle I would take in that,
I think-
Robin, whether that's good or bad, but.
I think they have, and you didn't check with anybody in Bloomfield?
Nope.
Okay. My sense is, even though they're out of state, they have experience in southeastern Michigan. I think that's a plus. Secondly, they're within the budget at $199,400 less than authorized. But it's a plus that the further plus is what the two of you have commented on, that is the coding system. So I think those are all pluses. And I like their proposal, I guess I have to say. I thought it just had a sense, this is the one entity where we're going to get a zoning nerd. And that's a plus in this, I think, as I view it. And there are two of them, so there are two people involved in this project. Sizemore is one, and the other is Brian Mabry. The people we would have are experienced, and I think that's an important consideration. I've made my comments known on the other one where we don't have the experience. So, open for discussion.
I just add 2 points to that. One, I think we have the same question, who's on the ground? It's
Yes.
hard to tell. I mean, they're based in Texas, I think.
Yes.
Sugarland, but I'm guessing that Sizemore comes out of Kentucky or the Midwest somewhere?
Probably the Louisville office, from what I could gather.
Yeah. Unfortunately, on page 7, if you look at his similar project experience, the man has more hours in the day than the rest of us. He's involved with seven
Oh,
ongoing projects.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's hot.
He's
Well, that also means he probably won't hear anything that he hasn't heard before.
absolutely. No, I'm with that. You know, I'm just raising.
Yeah, he does appear to be very busy.
down at the bottom.
Those are,
Okay, Naseem,
they're done.
No,
Naseem?
a lot of them say ongoing.
comments?
You're right.
Yeah, on this one, I just wanted to add, there was a limited discussion of community engagement. It seemed like they were proposing it as like a future deliverable, like, yeah, we'll get to it. If they come in for an interview, I'd want to hear, like,
It was far less engaging on that point than, for example, Giffords.
yeah. But I thought they demonstrated a good understanding of the 2040 plan. And as you said, within budget, aggressive timeline.
Yeah, my concern is, they strike me as technical oriented. I don't know how much in public engagement they must with all the entities that they've dealt with.
Sure.
That would be a question to ask in Northville and in Bloomfield.
I don't know that, I'm not going to say it like I'm polar opposites. I wasn't as taken aback by that, because their task 2 here is almost 4 pages long in terms of the different types of public engagements they're doing. And some of the stuff they're doing is unique.
Yeah.
The design workshops,
Yes.
the visualization tools, the polling tools.
That was good.
Even the field reconnaissance, only a couple people mentioned that they would come do walkthroughs and things. But still a really good question to ask, should they be,
Yeah.
to clarify when, where, how often, how
Yeah.
long.
Bert?
Yeah, I rated them amongst the highest. If I look at the experience for Sizemore, 17 years, or Mabry, 24 years, about half their experience or more is in the public sector as opposed to consulting. And I think you behave differently. So, I mean, it didn't alarm me, but it just seemed different than some of the other resumes that we saw, so.
Dan?
So their public engagement piece, one of the things they said is, we'll work that out with you, which I thought was, I took that as positive. In other words, they're not going to give us their,
Canned version.
exactly so I thought that was a positive. The other positive, in addition to what people have talked about, is this Brian Mabry. As I read his resume, he's also a person that focuses on process and administrative and making the zoning ordinance work well for the staff and the applicants, again, which I find to be a good thing. So I think they're, I like their proposal.
Okay, I think I've heard enough. The public? Any public?
Nope.
I think these people are in for an interview. Senses yes?
I'll bring them in.
Okay. So we've got,
Oh, my goodness.
McKenna.
we've got 2 yes so far.
2?
Yeah,
Housel Levine,
And Ken did.
and Kendig.
And a maybe.
yes, and Kendig. And a question on Giffords, which we'll get to. The 6th entity is McKenna, out of Northville, Michigan.
Okay.
Which entity has experience in the city of Birmingham, am I correct? Sure.
Oh, God, yeah.
Multitudes. Yeah, it's an understatement. So I called all their references as well. There was only really one problem, and it's not their problem, it's Ferndale's problem. That the turnover in Ferndale has been ridiculous. Nobody that works there now worked on this project with him, so I was unable to get a hold of them, would have been nice. But having lived in Ferndale, I actually had experience with that process. So a little inside scoop, it was very good. So I guess for me, they could have used me as a reference maybe. That would have been maybe a conflict. Everybody else spoke very highly of it. Typical things you hear about with McKenna, the responsiveness, the high quality type of stuff in terms of their product, but also their just ongoing workmanship. It was all really good. Some of them, though, I think had different project leads, and Laura Haw seems to have moved up a little bit in the company, and it would be more of a Paul Steele project manager type thing, which is not a problem. He's got a lot of experience here as well, so not a problem. Internally, we of course liked what felt custom to Birmingham this response was, even in the little things like all of their photographs that they supplied were in Birmingham. That was a key detail that some people just didn't seem to take advantage of.
You got it.
Even other local firms didn't have pictures of Birmingham in their proposals. They have a clear advantage in that they worked on our master plan with DPZ, so they're fully plugged into the master plan, how it got to where it is, and the concepts within.
Yep.
I think they did a good job of outlining that kind of stuff, and then everything else fell in place. Their typical public engagement was fine. The only note that we had concern, under budget, the only concern, if you call it a concern, that we had was the short timeline. Now, you could attribute that to their experience here and their work on the master plan and their vast understanding of Birmingham, but also, at the same time, if they do have experience here, seems like they should have gone longer based on experiences here. In fairness, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that they had experienced was right on time. So I don't think that it's all that alarming, but 11 months did seem quick, everything internally thought so. Other than that, it was internally our highest rated proposal, and including y'all, still our highest rated proposal.
I am concerned about what is the distinction between the project director and the project manager? Laura Howe being the project director and Paul Urbiel being the project manager.
And I don't know that offhand, it'd have to be a question for them.
Yeah. And I don't know how much practical experience Laura has in this role. I mean, she's,
In the project director role?
yeah.
Quite not
So that'd
sure
be
what
another
Laura
question
is.
I would have. Similar to the same kind of concern that I had with Jose Levine, you know. Who are we getting and how much experience do they have? I think it's important to know who we're getting between those two. Dan?
I'm having trouble with 11 months and aligning that to their proposed work schedule. At the end, through the 7th month, they're still having conversation tours, focus groups through 6 months, and then they're going to write this thing basically in 1 month. Draft administrative sections, complete second draft, 1 and 2 months, 9 and 10. I don't know that
That's not possible.
that's going to work. So I'm not convinced that 11 months is going to work, at least with this timeline. That said, you know, they're a good firm. I really like the tours. I thought that's a nice way to be sensitive to the community and to maybe talk about zoning in a more relatable way than just sitting in a conference room with a bunch
Yeah.
of Post-it stickers on the wall.
Yeah. They, well, somebody say this entity really more even than Giffords knows Birmingham
Yeah.
by far.
And I thought the way they weaved the references to the 2040 plan into the proposal
Right.
struck me as, not phony, sensible, I mean, organic, whatever word you want to use. I believed it. It made sense to me.
And I guess, Dan, to your point about the timeline, I still agree with you. But I think we got to take a step back and realize what McKenna is in kind of a machine. And when you've done 1,000 zoning ordinances, it's kind of easy to write code when you've written 1,000,
Yeah.
especially locally. They're so plugged into the current planning trends, this, that, or the other. And Birmingham, I expect them to probably have things going on in the background. But I think it's a very fair question to ask them,
Okay.
anticipating that they make it to the interview,
All
just to
right.
clarify.
So where I come out on this is they're in the interview. That gives us,
Let's see if there, by chance, there's anybody. who
well, let
wants
me go to the public first. Any public commenting on this?
Nope.
Okay. I think that gives us 3 interviews, 2 no, and we come back to Giffords Webster.
And I just want to add that they had a very, very nice proposal. It was really easy
Who are we talking
to
about?
understand. McKenna.
Okay.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't conclude on McKenna, so, Ferndale, Grosse Pointe Park, Ludington, Holland, Livonia, Chelsea.
Lot of experience.
A lot of experience and communities that might be similar in size.
Yeah.
And issues of Birmingham.
Giffords. What's the sense of the committee? Robin?
Awkward question, but I'll ask it anyway. If we were to appoint Giffords Webster to do this job,
Yeah.
would our chairperson have to recuse himself from the entire process?
He says no, that the city attorney has said no. I don't think it's a question of, the city attorney gives the legal opinion. And the legal opinion, I believe thus far, is once this board has selected, and really it's the city commission that winds up selecting, not us.
Yeah.
We simply recommend.
We recommend.
Once selected, then that conflict has been resolved legally. I'm not sure that there still wouldn't be some practical considerations that we'd have to be dealing with. It's not like the master plan where there were 8 million controversial items, but I'm not naive to think that we're going to sail right through this either. So I think it's an issue, but I think the city attorney has opined, and
Okay, thank you.
but ultimately, that question will be asked, my guess is, by the city commission if Giffords is the entity to be selected. And we will have at least 2 new members of the city commission who haven't even begun to think about this issue. So, at least 2.
The only reason I might want to meet them is because of this public sector
Yes.
thought, because I don't know them, and they convinced me that it's value added.
Well, they're over budget, and I think the reason they're over budget is because of them, public sector. They're not going to do it for less than 20,000. So there you go. And at the end of that, do we think it's worth it or not? And that's ultimately got to be decided by the city commission. My view is we should interview Giffords. Let me also make some comments about the interviews. I think we've got to put a time limit on each group. And I'm concerned about how the format will be. It's a public meeting, it's on TV, and if you're entity number 3, you're sort of rehearsing your answer as you're watching entity number 2 getting drilled. So I don't want them in the room. I want them in the building where they don't have access to a TV.
That's all fine. That's all pretty standard operating procedure for us. We've got the
Okay.
meeting rooms down
And
the
then
hall, so-
I think we got to shoot for max 45 minutes with each entity, maybe even a half hour. I think half an hour makes more sense. That's 2 hours. It gives us an hour to decide after that. My guess is when we come out of this, we're going to have more questions to be resolved. I don't think that we're going to make a recommendation until December. That's my sense of it.
There's no need to rush it, so if that's the way it is, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
If I might
Because
offer-
we're going to have follow-up questions.
If I might offer a little bit of 2 cents in terms of Giffords Webster, because I'm right in the middle on it. I think that someone mentioned kind of flopping on it. What's weighing down the no vote for me is the cost overrun and the clear zoning thing that I feel we don't really want. But also, it's not like we're asking them to come from Texas. They're just,
They
Right
can
here.
walk, they can walk to the meeting.
there's nothing in here that makes me want to throw it in the garbage by any stretch of the imagination. So since they're right down the street, I think I could probably get behind inviting them so we can
Okay,
do it.
so that's 4 yes and 2 no. Is that the sense of the group?
Yes?
Bert?
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah.
that. I think, I don't know how you contact them and what information you give them. Here's an example. You have the highest fee out of everybody. That's something you have to overcome, probably, as part of an interview or
Yeah,
something.
I think
Or-
Nick's got to talk to him about it. Between now and November. They're above fees. My guess is they're above fees because they got public sector consultants in this. And the question is, can they do it without them? And do we want that?
Or is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Yeah, those are all questions for the interview, though. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on this.
I'd like to recommend, and I've been involved in this and from both sides for a while, I'd like to suggest that we are quite firm with whoever comes, and we tell them to focus on We ask them the same questions.
Yeah, exactly.
A, B, C, and D. They don't need to tell us what's in our master plan. They don't need to tell us
Right.
zoning 101. Could they get to the crunch here? And we should give them, in my opinion, this is what I tell to students, I'll give you 20 minutes. Give them 20 minutes so that we've got a little bit of time to ask them questions before we move on to the
I
next.
wouldn't give them that much. We've got their proposal, I'd give them 15.
15, even better.
Yeah.
them stand
And
on
then-
hot coals.
And then having another 15,
great.
20 minutes of Q and, I mean, that's to make the presentation.
Yeah, the
I think
15
everybody
minutes, yeah.
should come in and give a presentation. And maybe, Nick, you can share with each of the four entities what our concerns are with respect to those entities, and they address those issues up front. Like, what's the deal with your cost? You're the highest. Don't wait for the question. You know it's coming. So address the issue front end. Now, what I would suggest, Nick, is that you circulate to the members a proposed list of questions that you feel from the city's standpoint,
Yeah.
from the city planning department standpoint, you think need to be addressed. And then each of us will look at it and maybe suggest some additionals. But this has got to be streamlined with four entities. This is more than I anticipated.
Yeah, and if I may suggest, I don't know that I want to get in the business of telling them or outlining the deficiencies that we've discussed with them. I might just suggest that they watch this meeting so that everyone's on an even
Okay.
playing field.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I'm not getting anything wrong or riffing. I just want them to watch what happened here.
Makes sense.
That's good.
So it's all even playing field, so that's all even Steven.
Yeah.
Quite a list of questions, fine, 15 minutes, great. We'll decide at the end whether it's 15 or 20. That's all stuff we do all the time. What I would like to know, because I think you agree, I don't want them to just stand up there and regurgitate their RFP either.
No, no.
No, please.
So we want finer grain. And
If
it
they've
sounds
listened
like-
to the interview, if they've watched this, then they know what the concerns are with respect
True,
to each
yeah,
entity.
yeah.
And you would simply say to them, watch at least that portion where we talked about you and address the issues that were raised. In your comments, don't wait for the questions, because if you don't address it, the questions are coming.
I think there's a more fundamental thing that we want them to address, and that's, why should we hire you for this project? Not hire you for a zoning rewrite, but this project for us, for this master plan, trying to align the zoning ordinance to the master plan. Why? Why? And it's your elevator pitch.
Yeah, see how they respond. Okay, anything
Okay.
else we need to discuss tonight? Nick?
I'm trying to think really quick, forgive me. In the event, we have a little bit of time, November 12th is a few weeks away, but since some of them are coming out of state, I'm going to suggest to them that in-person is best,
If they can do it.
but hybrid
But maybe,
is an option.
maybe they can't, or maybe some of the active participants
Okay.
can't, and they'll participate by Zoom.
So a little bit of both could work for you all?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think we
understand.
want everybody flying in from Texas.
But at least a couple. I think
Yeah, they
I'll
need
suggest
somebody
that
live.
in-person interviews.
We
with
need
their
to know who
hybrid.
we're dealing with.
I
That's
agree with
all.
that.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard from other communities that do zoning ordinance. That's the most important person is the project.
Who are we dealing with?
So.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good. I'll have to make sure they can all get here on the 12th.
If they can't, that's kind of a disqualifier, because that's the only meeting we got in November.
Yeah, okay. And I guess,
And then I would simply say, I don't think, if they ask, are you going to pick somebody on November 12th or recommend people to the city commission? My view is, we will do that by December. We'll have the list of one or more to recommend to the city commission by December.
yep, that sounds good. And just as a little bit of a tidbit, I think in my opinion, what this board should endeavor to do is recommend one. I think it would
Well,
go
we
against-
should,
When we get there,
yeah, we'll try.
I think we should recommend one. It gets very challenging when you send two or three up. So just endeavor to try to narrow it down as best you can. We'll work closely with I'll work closely with Brian to make sure everything's on board, but other than that, I think I'm okay for now. I think we're cool.
Yeah.
In the interim,
All
just
right,
let me know.
anything else
Anything,
that we have on the agenda? We've got
nothing really.
project updates. You might comment on the Hunter House.
Sure, hot news, everybody's seen that article. The good news is I've been talking with the owners of Hunter House for like 4 months about this. So
And it's not our problem.
it's not, it's going to the design review board, they're just doing facade work. They're eliminating the drive-through so they don't need a slup. Everything kind of by right. So they're trying to bring that experience to that site down there, and they bought it, so I think they're going to take good care of it.
Okay? And we don't know what the effect of them leaving their current location is on the likelihood of the project that we've seen on more than 5 occasions.
We do not, we were promised in April that the last extension we gave was to develop development drawings. We have not seen any permit documents yet.
And boy.
No foundation work.
Okay.
No demo.
All right,
no
I don't have anything else. Administrative approval, correspondence, I didn't have any comments. Draft agenda, do we have anything on the agenda in November other than the interviews?
Nope.
Yeah, let's keep it that way,
Yeah, that's,
because
that was
we're going to be here
intentional.
all night anyway.
We also don't really have anything, but, all right.
All right, so final sense, we give them 15 to 20 minutes.
Now, we're going to
They
give,
make the presentation.
we give them a specific time. It's either 15 or it's 20.
Well, you decide. What do you want, 15? All right, 15 minutes, Q&A, another 15. We're done in a half hour, we're done in 2 hours total. And if you're not being interviewed, you aren't in the room. Period. They can watch the TV later.
Yeah, it's, we don't contact until the end, until someone's selected.
Okay.
So,
Anything else?
Including those that didn't make the short list?
What?
Wait until.
because in
there's a
theory,
final
everything's
file.
on the table until the end, because since we're
Makes
just
sense.
making a
Yeah, but you're going to call those two.
eventually.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. And,
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
yeah,
Great work.
and if there's no further business, meeting adjourned.